When we think of Commonwealth cooperation, the most obvious may be the sporting event that happens every 4 years and maybe little else. But one St. Johnner wants to expand our horizons and bring about a freedom of movement and work between Canada, the UK, Australia, and New Zealand. And Joshua Thomson has like-minded friends in those parts of the world pushing the idea too. Good morning, Joshua.
Good morning.
Tell me the mission of your organization.
Yes, well, it is called the Commonwealth Freedom Movement Organization, and it means exactly that. It's a movement that's proposing free movement for the citizens of United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. So it would be without visa control or permits.
How would that change our lives?
I believe it's a great opportunity for all of us, something that we would all benefit from. Many believe that the Commonwealth is a relic of the old world that's no longer relevant, though this movement is an idea that could keep it alive for the future. So this is a movement that would preserve it for future generations. And the idea of being able to move freely between the countries, that could have many benefits that we can't yet foresee.
The idea of the Commonwealth might feel antiquated, as you mentioned, to some. So how do you push beyond that?
Well, we have a petition online, and I believe that speaks for itself. And as of this morning, it had over 163,000 signatures. And that has been in a little over a year, it has achieved that. And there is a want for this. There's people living in these countries that, for example, they're separated from their loved ones, and they can't be together because they're restricted with permits or visas. And so this movement, it's an idea where we can be able to commute between the countries and keep a tradition alive that has been in place for all these decades, but it's also a new idea that can, you could say, reinvent the wheel for the future.
What was your reason to join?
I had done a lot of traveling, and I actually lived in New Zealand at one point on a working holiday visa. I've been to New Zealand multiple times, and I have visited Australia and the United Kingdom as well. And I told them my story, and I said I would love to be able to help out in any way if needed. And so they emailed me back. Didn't take them very long, and they were quite interested, and they said, we would really like to have support on the eastern side of Canada, because our executive director, his name is James Skinner, and he is in Vancouver, and he's a UK citizen. He was living in Australia, but now he's in Canada. And he said, we would love to make you the representative for East Canada. And of course, I was more than happy to take that on. And ever since, I've been doing a lot of advocating locally for the cause. And it's just basically getting the word out there that, hey, this is an idea that we're looking at. And the petition that we've done, it has been submitted to the parliaments of all of the mentioned countries.
What are some of the common difficulties that you had while trying to live and work in these countries?
Well, when I lived in New Zealand, I was only 19 when I moved there. It was the first time I moved out of home, so I literally spread my wings. And I lived there for a year, and I kind of created a new home. I became quite settled there, made a lot of friends who I'm still in touch with today. New Zealanders are quite like Maritimers in that sense. And I really just found myself really becoming independent, and I guess I thought, you know what, I'd like to remain here. I'd like to, I've created this new life for myself, and I love New Zealand, so I don't see any reason why I shouldn't try to stay. And so I applied through immigration. I went through the entire process, which was quite lengthy. And in the end, basically, they believed that I had a job that a New Zealander could do, and rightfully so. As I look back on it now, I was quite frustrated at the time. I saw that as a bit of a defeat for me. But 10 years later, I didn't realize that it was going to be turned into a positive. And this was my way of turning that into a positive, was to advocate for something that, I believe so strongly in, that even though a lot of people think we don't necessarily need a queen anymore, well, that could be so. However, this is a way that we can take the Commonwealth and we can introduce it so that this preserves it for the future. This is a new concept where we can actually open up the borders, which was the original intent of the Commonwealth. And then between those four countries, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and the UK, they have such similarities, and you could say they're probably the anchors of the Commonwealth at this point. They would be the ones that we would start with. And then once the practice was in motion, then we could branch out to the other realms of the Commonwealth.
Right, 31 countries.
Yes, it's quite lengthy, and there's 16 of them that have the same head of state, which is Queen Elizabeth II, and Canada, New Zealand, Australia, and the UK all fit that profile. So I believe that's how this movement got started. Well, that would be a good place to start, and as my mother likes to say, Rome wasn't built in a day. And so this would be a way that we could, get the movement going, and then we could branch out to the other Commonwealth countries if they'd like to join.
What about those rules, though, that say that, and the many rules that say that you can't work in this country because someone else could have this job? Those are impediments that seem to me that would be almost insurmountable with this particular cause. You'd have to change a lot of things.
Exactly. It's a big movement, and it will take time. It won't happen overnight. And I'd be really interested to see the kind of shift that would happen between the countries. I mean, I know many people that would love the opportunity. So this is an idea that basically, if people wanted to take advantage, if they studied history and they wanted to move to the United Kingdom to really exercise that profile that they have, which is something that I love, is history as well, then they could desire to do so. So it gives people the opportunity to travel and work in other countries. And in a society that's becoming smaller and more transparent, I believe that this is a good way for people to broaden their horizons. I know many people that would love to be able to go to a different country and work if they could, but because of the visa restrictions that are in place right now, they're not able to do that.
And why, again, is it just these Commonwealth countries? Why not look at other countries as well?
These ones, because of our socio and economic ties that we've shared over the years, in 1931, there was the Statute of Westminster. And these 4 countries all adopted that statute. And of course, they remained. They're still a part of the Commonwealth, and the Queen is still their head of state. And those 4 countries, they have remained the anchors of the Commonwealth. And we believe just because of such statistics like life expectancy, English-speaking population, unemployment rates, those have all been variables that we've looked at that would look at the idea of being able to commute between these 4 countries. And so this would be a way to basically start this off initially, and then we can include places like South Africa, Bermuda, and so on and so forth.
What reaction have you received from any of the governments that you've submitted your petition to?
We've had a lot of support. As we mentioned, it's a large movement, but we've had a lot of enthusiasm towards it. I believe it's something that people necessarily couldn't think that would be possible, but with the support that we've been receiving around the world, the petition grows each day, and you are able to sign that online. And we strongly recommend everyone to contact their local MPs to let them know that, yes, hey, this is something that we would love to see happen. We should look at this for the future, and this is something that could really benefit our societies. Is there something similar elsewhere in the world? Yes. Well, now that you mention that, the Trans-Tasman Agreement between Australia and New Zealand, that's an agreement that's already been in place for years. So basically, the Australians and New Zealanders, they're able to move freely between the countries and work without having to worry about visa or permits. So easily, it already exists between 2 of the countries that are mentioned. And so basically, it's just basically kind of expanding that movement out so that people can see that, you know what, this kind of a pilot project that's happening between these 2 countries, and it works. It's proven to work, and we should look at that for example, Canada and the United Kingdom. When do you hope to see any movement on it, and do you see any in the near future? Our executive director, he believes that we could potentially see this happen within the next 10 years. Like I say, in a little over a year, we've had over 163,000 people sign this petition, and there's been a lot of excitement around this. Politicians have shown interest. They've made it a part of their party's proposition in some cases. And so, the more that we talk about this, the more that we advocate for this cause to show that, this is something that can happen. This is our future that we're talking about here. And this would be a really cool idea for people to be able to move freely between these countries. It would benefit all the economies, I truly believe. So I would like to think within the next 10 years we could see something like this happen. And the pieces are sort of already falling in place. It's been fascinating to talk about. Thank you so much for coming in. Thank you, Hans, for having me. Joshua Thomson is with the Commonwealth Freedom of Movement Organization. He's giving a talk tomorrow night on the history of the Commonwealth at 7:30 at the New Brunswick Museum.